Hello, and welcome to my month 5 video, and the video directly before I head to Vietnam. Studying Vietnamese is getting more and more enjoyable as I continue to grasp more and more of the language. I've really been enjoying the sentence flashcards I discussed in the last video, and this month I have also worked to improve my ability to perceive and identify the tones, as well as improving my general knowledge about Vietnam. Before I get started, I want to warn you that this video may be a little bit less polished and concise since I am short on time to write and record it. I leave tomorrow. So, studying this month has been rather all or nothing. I either studied for 3 to 5 hours or 1 hour. This past month has encompassed Thanksgiving, an early Christmas, and preparing for Vietnam, which account for 8 of the sub 3-hour days. While I'm sure I could have managed my time better, studying less due to holidays and vacations really doesn't bother me. I mean, that's just life. So when I did find the time to study, I had lots of motivation fueled by my progress and my upcoming trip. In total, I logged about 79 hours this month. However, I realized I hadn't kept accurate track of the time I spent reading Wikipedia and about Vietnamese tones and pronunciation in my records. So for the sake of completeness, I'm going to tack on another 6 hours and say I studied for 85 hours this month. That brings me to an overall total of 390 hours. So not bad. This month, I think I spent about 42 hours on YouTube, about 29 hours on flashcards, 6 hours on tones and minimal pair training, and 8 hours, reading about Vietnam and Vietnamese. Okay, I think my current ability is still improving by leaps and bounds. Flashcards continue to get easier to learn, and the sentences that I have learned sound like real language. That may be a strange way to describe it, but basically what I'm trying to say is that the language is starting to sound familiar, at least within the confines of the vocabulary and grammar structures that I have encountered. Progress towards understanding entire videos is slow but palpable. If I understood 10% of what I heard 30 days ago, then now I'm understanding 15%. It's hard to give a good estimate because it really varies from video to video. One thing I have noticed from learning new flashcards is that sometimes a single unknown word in a sentence can render every word in the sentence incomprehensible. Not always, but definitely sometimes. I think this is why, despite knowing 50%, I don't know, 50% of the words being said in a video, I may only understand a very small percentage of what's being said. I'm certainly not the first person to say this, but I suspect comprehension and percentage of words known have a very non-linear relationship, and that a large vocabulary is necessary even for basic fluency. So I put some effort into learning to perceive tones better this month, and as a result, I can perceive tones better. I think the increased perception is allowing me to process what I'm hearing better, and as a result, understand and retain more of what I hear. I discuss exactly what I did to improve later in the video. In regards to going to Vietnam, given my current ability, I don't really expect to be able to understand anyone who isn't speaking slowly and directly to me. And even then, it'll probably be a struggle. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised and understand more, or maybe I'll understand nothing. I'll talk about how it went in the next video. Okay, let me say some sentences for you. I don't expect to do too much better than last month because I still haven't spent any time learning to speak, but maybe I'll surprise both of us. I picked 8 sentences. Here we go. Previously, I did research on biology. Trước đây chị làm nghiên cứu về sinh học. Bún cha is always eaten with fresh herbs and leaves. Bún cha bao giờ cũng ăn cùng với rau sống. They say that you shouldn't drink coffee after 5. Người ta nói là không nên uống cà phê sau 5 giờ. turn right at that street and there is a pharmacy. Dễ phải ở phố kia là có hiệu thuốc. Hey, don't stand in the middle of the street. Kia. Try again. Kia đường giữa đường. Do you find studying Vietnamese easy? Học tiếng Việt có thấy dễ không? Let me say it one more time. Học tiếng Việt có thấy dễ không? I don't know, maybe. That guy just sleeps all day. Thằng kia chỉ ngủ suốt ngày thôi. She really likes animals, especially rabbits. Cô ta rất thích động vật, đặc biệt là thỏ. Maybe. Okay, well, whatever. It went okay, maybe. Anyway. Okay, videos and stuff. This month I tried watching a lot of new stuff on YouTube. I watched some MasterChef Vietnam, which was very entertaining, but had a big mix of dialects. I also watched Neen Tito's food videos, Say Hi's car videos, and a few videos from a military channel called Zai Ma'a Vũ Khí. That particular channel has some great original content, but also a lot of English and Russian documentaries with a Vietnamese voiceover. So like most Vietnamese most dubbed content in Vietnamese, the original audio is simply like softened, the volume's brought down a little bit, and just somebody's talking over that audio. I find it very distracting. I can't speak now. I find this style of dubbing very distracting, and I generally just avoid it because I don't like listening to it. I also tried watching VTV, which is a state-owned television network in the north. They stream all their channels online and have some of their shows archived online. I really wanted it to work because I thought there was a lot of interesting content, but the streaming quality was just too poor. Some of the archived shows work okay, but the live streaming is just unwatchable due to constant buffering. Really unfortunate. But I am just starting to explore VTC, another state-owned network, through the VTC Now app, and it seems much more usable. I'll have to report back later whether the content is good or not, because like I said, I just started looking at it. Flashcards. Overall, flashcards went pretty well this month. I think the sentence flashcards have been extremely effective and have helped me improve a lot. Doing 25 new cards a day, it got a little bit old about halfway through the month, but eventually things smoothed out, and I actually started to enjoy learning those new cards. I didn't meet my goal of 1,000 new cards in 40 days, but I came close enough, totaling in at 858 cards. Some people might say it's a mistake to measure progress in flashcards, but I think it's a valid metric in the early stages of learning, but that's just my opinion. So in the course of trying to increase my vocabulary, I came across words that had relatively concrete meanings. Bicycle, pencil, mango, cell phone, candle, scissors, backpack, the list goes on. While I could have made sentences for each of these words, I felt that it would be more efficient to make these particular words into picture flashcards. They take far less time to learn and review than sentences and can provide a quick boost to my vocabulary. The format is basically audio on the front and 2 to 3 representative pictures on the back. I do think this method is more prone to having flashcards that just don't stick. These particular cards, those that don't stick, can become a huge drain on time and energy and motivation. So any cards that I failed like 3 or 4 times in a row, I just took them out of the deck. No need to bother with them. If I want to learn them later, maybe I will. It just wasn't worth the drain. So it might seem like I'm contradicting myself by switching to and talking, giving so much praise to these sentence-based cards and then creating vocab cards. The critical difference is that with my previous method, only 30% of my cards were sentences and 70% of them were vocab or phrase cards. And there was a lot of information overlap in those cards because I was learning the vocab so I could understand the sentence. With my current method, 90% of my cards have been sentences and 10% have been vocab. I think it's far more efficient. I get more exposure to full sentences, sentence structures, etc., etc. Okay, 2 months ago, if you remember, I talked about making and trying to use some subs to SRS sticks, but at the time they were beyond my ability. As a reminder, subs to SRS, it basically is a program that makes flashcards from the subtitles on a video. So towards the end of this month, I tried looking at the decks I had made a couple months ago, look at them again, and I'm happy to report that I now understand enough to use them. Of course, there are still plenty of cards that I don't understand, but it's much easier for me to determine which ones are good to learn and which ones I should save for later, something I couldn't do before. It's really great practice for hearing different people speak, hearing fast and slurred speech, though at this point, some of the speech is just too fast, too slurred for me to understand, no matter how many times I listen. I just can't hear, can't parse the words, but one day, just saving them for later. With this method, good English Vietnamese dictionaries are still a major hindrance, but I figure if I can just skip the cards that I can't find a definition for, I can come back later with a Vietnamese dictionary if I still want to learn them. But yeah, no reason not to just skip them. There's plenty of other cards, plenty of other content to learn. Ideally, I wanted to do 3,000 pre-made cards before completely switching to subs to SRS. I mean, I think even 4,000 or 5,000 cards could be beneficial, but making 20 to 25 new cards a day is a huge burden for my wife because she makes them, she records them. All I have to do is learn them. So because of this, I'll probably start mixing pre-made and subs to SRS cards. Probably, I expect we'll end up with 2,700 pre-made cards and a bunch more subs to SRS cards. So semi-related to these flashcards, I started using the audio files from my flashcards as listening practice. I've been watching tons of videos for the past few months, but even now, they're just barely going from complete gibberish to 90% gibberish. I feel like the repetition of mostly comprehensible language is likely to do a lot of good. Basically, I made a playlist of all my flashcard sentences and listened to them in random order, which at this point is about 40 minutes worth of audio. It's worth noting that despite studying these sentences in my flashcards for weeks or months, there are many that I still don't understand or I don't parse or comprehend on the first listen, and many words that I don't recognize without the rest of the context of the sentence. Of course, too much repetition of old stuff will bring diminishing returns, and not to mention it gets real boring. But I do think that doing this 2 to 3 times a week may have been something I could have benefited from in previous months. And I think it will benefit me now, but we'll see. Okay, so the tone thing that I talked about earlier, increasing my perception of tones. What I did is first, I decided I wanted to hear them better. So I started trying to guess in my flashcards, the new word that I was learning. I would try to listen for that word and hear what tones were on it, what tones were part of it. Anyway, descriptions. And so it kind of worked, but it ended up taking a lot of extra time, and my flashcards were already taking me an hour or more to do. So I decided to make a separate program that just would test me on tones, and it would test me on the tone of individual, just one word. So after a few days of using it, I found it to be relatively easy. I didn't get all of them, but it was pretty easy. So I changed the program to test me on 2, 3, 4, up to 10 word, syllable, phrases and sentences. This was far more difficult and very enlightening. I'm extremely pleased with the results of that practice. I find it enjoyable, picking up on a lot of new stuff. Starting mid-month, I tried to use the program for about 20 minutes a day, but really in the past week I haven't found time, or I've been bad at managing my time, and I haven't been able to use it. While I was making this program and starting this process, I was also reading some articles about the northern tones. The most enlightening article, and the longest, was a 2001 thesis paper written by Hoa Pham. I'll discuss what I learned sometime in the future, but if you're impatient and have a few hours to spare, it's a very interesting read. overall, I really like this tone practice, and I will be doing it alongside minimal pairs for the foreseeable future. Speaking of reading, I spent a lot of time reading Wikipedia articles about Vietnam this month. I read about history, food, culture, Ho Chi Minh, what's his name? Ngo Dinh Diem, the guy that was the president of the South back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, somewhere in that range, Vietnam War era. The Chung sisters. I read about Hanoi, Hue, read about Agent Orange, all sorts of stuff. As I said before, I think culture and language are intertwined, and I found that the historical and cultural perspective that I gained was very enlightening, especially when to Vietnam. I think it'll be very helpful. I also read a little bit about vowel and consonant pronunciation for Vietnamese. I think understanding, at least in theory, how and where a sound is produced can help one perceive it. Is it nasal? Is it rounded? Is it plosive, like a plosive? Is it, where is the tongue? I don't plan on actually learning to produce a sound before I can properly perceive it. But like I said, I do think that having an idea of kind of what to look for can help. So, okay, regarding Vietnam, going to Vietnam, the only deliberate studying I think I'll do in the next couple weeks is just flashcard reviews and maybe playing a little bit with my little tone trainer program. Otherwise, I'm just going to be enjoying my time there and hopefully getting some good immersion. I will probably end up speaking some Vietnamese, but I'm not going to force anything. As I've said before, in general, I want to save speaking until after I can perceive the sounds fairly well, and also have a pretty high level of comprehension. But I don't think 10 or 12 days is going to do any harm to that, so whatever. Okay, I think that's everything. That's everything I wanted to cover, or at least most of it. Like I said, I'm recording this 12 hours? No, more than 12 hours, 16 hours before I leave. But yeah, overall, I am very excited by my progress, and I am enjoying the whole process of learning and consuming Vietnamese content more than ever. So yeah, I am looking forward to reporting back next month. Thank you guys for listening, and see you in 30 days.